I
Awesome.
already did. Thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. I am Sylvia, and I'm going to kick off this event by talking a little bit about the loans for mostly small business. When I say small business, I want to give a definition first so people won't confuse. When I say small business, most of the cases I refer to businesses that has under 500 employees in total. That's mostly what I'm going to cover. As to those giant, mega, huge corporates, that's not what I'm going to cover today. But I'll quickly mention it, but that's not going to be our focus. So let me start. So, okay, let me do the screen. So these are, okay, so these are the major things that I'm going to talk about today. I think a lot of them people are already familiarized themselves with, including the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, something we call IDO, and the famous or infamous Paycheck Protection Program, PPP. And there are other less known options such as the Coronavirus Economic Stabilization Act. I'm going to just mention a little bit unemployment benefit, but I think our panelist Brian will cover it more. And I just want to quickly mention unemployment because for a lot of business owners, thinking about how to pay their employees, sometimes it may not work for everyone, but unemployment may be a better option because in the long run it might make sense for the business. But as I said, I'm going to leave it mostly to Brian. So what are the major features of these loans? For IDO, I think as everyone know, the most notable feature is the $10,000 advance. And as you all know, CARES Act just got enacted and it just went into effect not very long ago. And for any act that comes up within such a short time, obviously there must be some detail that cannot be moreover, that cannot be really ironed out. So when IDO or PPP or SESA first was launched, was rolled over, a lot of details are kind of in gray area and leaving a lot of questions and a lot of confusions in the community, in people's mind. And for IDO, I think a lot of questions being asked is, how does this $10,000 advance being calculated and how is it being awarded? And SBA just recently promulgated a new rule saying that this $10,000 is going to be awarded or granted based on how many employees you have last year. If anyone here has ever applied for IDO yourself, you would probably recall during the whole process, there was a question asked, how many employees you have. Most likely, IDO is going to issue this $10,000 advance based on that answer. If you answer 2 employees, they are going to issue $2,000, and so it's basically $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000 advance. This is the most notable part of IDO, and the rest of it is just loan with very, very low interest. As to PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, the most notable feature is the forgiveness. As everyone knows, if you use the money to the right place in the right channel, you can get the full forgiveness. And that is the feature that everyone look forward to the most. As to what would qualify as a forgiveness, that is a real question, and I'm going to cover it later in greater detail. As to SESA, this is mostly targeting very distressed sector of the economy, mostly including aircraft carrier, aircraft agency, and national defense industry. I think this is of least interest of this of our community or our audience. So I'll quickly pass on that. Loan amount, how many money can we get if you are a business owner? And if you are really interested in applying for any of these things, this is the first question that you're going to ask, right? So for IDO, it's up to $2 million. $2 million may not seem to be a big amount, but for a lot of small business, it can be definitely a life string. It can help them survive a couple, I would say, months. Some of them might even help them survive a year. So in the past, IDO is always there. This is not a new thing. IDO is always in small business administration's function and in their operation. The only thing that CARES Act really made changes on is to the requirement, and pretty much they loosen up on a lot of requirement under IDO, including the personal guarantee. It used to be required for $25,000 loan, and they just loosen it up to and increase the amount to over $200,000, which means if you're just getting a loan of under $200,000 during this period, I mean before June 30, then you would be and you certify that your business is being adversely impacted by the coronavirus, then you may be eligible to get this loan without any personal guarantee. For loan amount of PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, it's up to $10 million. But most notable thing is, well, I mean, this might not be a good news for everyone, but as of, I believe, Thursday or Friday, I think it's Thursday, SBA announced that the fund for PPP has been depleted. So they are not going to accept any new application. As to various lenders that work with SBA, like Bank of America, like Chase Bank, like Citibank, like a lot of other banks that work with SBA. Some of them already hold the application. They completely shut down their portal and are not accepting any new application. Some of them, however, are still accepting new applications in the hope that Congress is still thinking about and are still discussing on new funding, which might be the case. So for those new applications that comes in after the loan, the full grant amount is depleted, whether it can be issued is pretty much depending on the Congress option. And for that, obviously, we don't have that much control, but we can definitely call our congresswoman or congressman to, extend your wish. So for loan amount, the most important factor that governs PPP is there are two bars. It's up to 10 million, and another one is 2.5 times of the average monthly payroll cost. So what does that mean? 2.5 times. That is a very simple math calculation. But what does average monthly payroll cost mean? Under the current interim rule published by SBA, it means all the payroll costs during the past 12 months. And if you just divide it by 12, you'll get the average. So what do they usually cover? Obviously, it covers salary or wages, and it also covers all kinds of employment benefit, such as health insurance premium that is paid by the company is also covered under this payroll cost definition. And on top of that, it also can include like employment benefit, like retirement benefit, like some company has a 401k matching that comes directly from the company. That also counted as PPP for the definition of payroll cost. So how do you do the calculation? You pretty much add up all the wages, salaries, and healthcare premium, all the payroll costs, payroll tax, everything, you add all of them together for the past 12 months, and then you divide it by 12. There is one thing that I want to add on to this little payroll cost definition. The act make it very clear that the salary over $100,000 for an individual must be deducted. So it means like if someone's making, for example, $150,000, then for the purpose of calculating payroll cost, this $50,000 must be deducted. That's how you come up with the final amount of payroll cost. And then after you come up with it, you just times 2.5, and you get the loan amount. As you see, as I just mentioned, is mostly for those big corporates in specific industry, in specific sector that are undergoing some really, really hard time. And of course, for them, they are our congressmen's good friends. So they got the most money. So I just quickly mentioned the money, the loan amount, but I would not go into detail of the loan. So I'm going to focus on IDO and PPP, as I mentioned before. So what is the eligibility of IDO and PPP? Well, I think everyone can see the screen, and you can already see the big difference. You see IDO, there's only 2 or 3 lines, and for PPP, there's a huge line. So the most important difference is IDO is mostly for entities, companies with corporate format, which means like partnership, sole proprietors, independent contractors, or self-employed people are not covered. So if you don't have an entity like a corporation or LLC or something like that before February 15, then you are not qualified to apply for any loan under IDO. And of course, on top of the, you must have a corporate entity. You also have to be having less than 500 employees. It has to be small business in order to qualify under IDO. As to PPP, there is a lot of questions being asked and a lot of gray area that is not yet clear up. So, I mean, SBA is very busy answering all kinds of questions. They are having webinars almost every day, but still, as this act is being passed like in a rather short time, obviously there is not enough time to do the public hearing, and of course there leave a lot of gray area. The most notable part about PPP's eligibility is it is open to a lot of, let's say, individuals that are traditionally or conventionally would not be qualified as a small business. For PPP, it covers, of course, a normal small business, which means like companies, incorporations, corporates, LLCs, and including some of the nonprofit organizations. And of course, it has to be under 500 people, employees. But here is the tricky part. It also extends to sole proprietors, meaning legally speaking, it means that someone who's doing their own business. This person may not incorporate, may not form a company, but he or she is doing business. Then it's called sole proprietors. And we also extend to independent contractors. For example, I'm pretty sure some of the audience here may be a broker, like real estate broker, or like they are doing a contract, they are working for a specific like construction company, but they did not form any company. They are independent contractors. Or some of them are self-employed. For example, you are just taking in some business, you have your little home office, and you take 1099 on your tax return, and you might be still eligible for PPP loan. But that leaves a lot of questions in people's mind, because do you remember I just mentioned the PPP loans amount is 2.5 times of average monthly payroll cost. So for sole proprietors, independent contractors, or self-employed, how do you calculate the payroll cost? How do you calculate that? I have been asking SBA these questions and trying to figure out the answer. The answer I got so far is you can base that amount on your 1099. For example, if your 1099 shows that your income is $50,000 last year, then you can simply use that as your payroll, because technically if you are a self-employed or independent contractor, that is your payroll. Pretty much that's what it means. So if you have $50,000 on your 1099, then you just divide by 12 and then times 2.5 times. That's the loan amount you are going to get. The real question lies in forgiveness. This is the focus of PPP loan. What can be forgiven? Of course, forgiveness does not come in automatically. It does not come in just falling from sky. You have to apply for it. You can apply for it with your lender. As PPP is issued by lenders like banks who cooperate and work under the guidance of SBA, you can go to your lenders, specific banks, and ask them about full detail. But these are the major guidelines provided by SBA and provided by the CARES Act. So these are the three major categories that can go into forgiveness, which means if the loan is issued, let's say today, you have 8 weeks to spend your money on the right place. And then after the 8 weeks, you can apply for forgiveness for the right amount of money being spent on the right place. So of course, this is paycheck protection. So of course, the money has to go to a payroll. And I already discussed what payroll means. It means the normal salary, wages, bonus that are under $100,000 annually for an individual. It also covers health insurance premium. It also covers retirement benefits and other kind of payroll costs. So if you spend money on this payroll type of expense, then these money are eligible for forgiveness. Note that since this loan is called Paycheck Protection Program, SBA just promulgated another rule saying that you have to spend at least 75% of the loan amount on payroll-related costs. You cannot spend the full amount on rent or utilities. You have to spend money on the payroll, and it has to be over 75%. This is a very important rule for forgiveness, because if you don't fulfill this, you are not eligible for any forgiveness. For the PPP loan, you can also spend on rent for any lease that is in effect before February 15 to be eligible for forgiveness. And other expenses include utilities and mortgage interest. So if you spend all of the loan amount within 8 months to these three categories, you may be eligible for the full amount forgiveness, which is the best part of PPP, I believe. Of course, there are some I'm pretty sure that also leaves a lot of questions as to those sole proprietors, independent contractors, and eligible self-employed. What does that mean for them when they say you have to spend 75% on payroll? What does that mean? They don't have payroll. They have 1099, of course, but does it mean that the money should be issued to them directly as their compensation? Unfortunately, SBA has not yet promulgated very clear rules about how does this payroll thing work for self-employed or like independent contractors. It is not very clear, but given the idea and the rationale behind the act, and given the name of the act, given the purpose of the act is to protect the paycheck, it would be reasonable to assume that for self-employed or independent contractors or sole proprietors, if they issue the money to themselves as their own compensation, that should qualify as payroll cost. Okay. So how to apply for the loans? For idle, I think most people already hear about that. You can just apply for it from SBA's website. And for PPP, as I just mentioned before, you have to apply through your lenders who are working with SBA. Note that a lot of the lenders, a lot of banks have a specific requirement that you have to have a business account or a commercial account with them in order to eligible for PPP application under their portal. So for most of the people here and for most of the companies, it's better that you look for your own. Like if you have a bank account with Chase, maybe you should ask Chase Bank. If you have a bank account with Signature Bank or Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, go to your lenders and ask them if they have this program. And by the way, as I said, the loan, this whole grant is being depleted for now. So no new application, but depending on the act of the Congress, we might still have more funds. So at this moment, just go to your lenders and inquire what's the options there. Maybe some of them are still taking in new applications in the case Congress passed new act. On top of those items that I just mentioned, the most popular EIDL and PPP and CISA, these are other funding options that people may consider. These include the SBA Express Bridge Loan. The feature of this loan is this is actually a part of EIDL. And just like the $10,000 quick advance, this Express Bridge Loan provide up to $25,000 quick access to certain borrowers who already have EIDL or similar loan project with SBA before. And the second one is SBA Debt Relief. This is also for those small business who already have loan or other project going on with SBA. If you already have the micro loan with SBA, SBA vow to automatically defer all the loan payment to the end of this year. And also, if you have a micro loan with SBA, the sweet thing is SBA is going to cover for you 6 months payment for your micro loan. So that is definitely a great relief for a lot of business owners. And there are other little options, different kind of funding, different kind of grants provided by corporations coming from private entities, such as the Facebook Small Business Grant. on their website, and after my inquiry, they say that the loan detail is, well, the grant detail is not yet being published, but for whoever is interested, you can simply sign up on their website, and you should be getting more updates after they iron out the detail. Well, so at this moment, I think I already covered most of the major topics that I want to talk about. But this is some philosophical thing that I want to share with everyone here. I know that some of you are business owners. I know some of you are employees or independent contractors or self-employed. But no matter where your position is, we all are undergoing a very, very challenging time. But as Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. This might be a crisis on its face, but if we see it in a more positive way, or if we use it in a meaningful way, we might turn this crisis into something fruitful. We might actually see some business opportunities, or we can get our own life takeaways from this whole crisis. Like we can start to think about, for example, if we should include business interruption insurance in our coverage, particularly for business owners. Before this whole crisis, I'm also a business owner. I have a lease with my landlord, of course. And obviously, during this time, it's very, very difficult for me to, pay the full amount of rent for my office, since we cannot even use the office. We have no access to the office right now because the building completely shut down. So during this time, I'm a lawyer, but I don't really look into my lease. I didn't really pay that much attention to my own lease. Not until this moment. And then I look into my lease and I was like pondering, if I have a business interruption coverage, and maybe I should have this. So this whole crisis may seem a little bit overwhelming for a lot of people, but sometimes it's also a great chance for us to reset and to look into certain aspects that we did not pay attention to before. So I think that concludes my presentation. And then I'm going to pass the screen to Brian.